There we go. I apologize for that. So I'll call this meeting to order if you didn't hear. First order of business, I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the district of Spaganagity, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. East Hants further acknowledges that the 50 African Nova Scotian communities whose 400-year history have contributed to the province's culture, history, and legacies. We are all treaty people. Next order of business, approval of agenda for all the subcommittees of today. What is your wish? Okay, I move them approved. Approval of the minutes of February 18th. Is there any errors or omissions? Hearing none, I'll approve them as read. Next order of business is oath of office for Councillors Tingley, Perry, and Musa. Do you have them in front of you? You do? All right, if you'll please, well, you don't have to stand, I guess. They can do that from the seat. If you can do that in unison, and when it comes to your name, just put your name in, and then we'll continue. Okay, you may begin. Just hold out, guys. Try to get some.
I, Michael Walter Perry of Lansing in the district, in the municipality of District of East Hants, affirm that I will faithfully, diligently, and impartially execute and perform the duties required of me as a member of the East Hants Police Advisory Committee. And while I continue to hold office, I will do to the best of my judgment, skill, knowledge, and ability, carry out and discharge and perform all the duties of my office faithfully, impartially, and according to the Police Act or any other act and any other regulation, rule, bylaw, and will not, except in the discharge of my duties, disclose to any person any matter or evidence brought forward by the East Hants Police Advisory Committee. I affirm.
Thank you, councillors. Now that will be recorded in the records. Next order of business, RCMP Court. Next order of business, RCMP quarterly report. Staff Sergeant Balamasita, and I'm sorry, it's not Scott, so.
You'll answer to not Scott.
Not Scott? Okay, from now on, you're known as not Scott.
Corporal Jody Simpson is with me. He's been acting for Sergeant McCrae, who's been off for elbow surgery. First, I want to apologize for the tardiness. That parking lot is the busiest I have ever seen it. You guys must have an autograph signing or something going on in this building, because I've never, ever seen it that busy, including the Aquatic Center. So the quarterly report. So with the agenda that we're going to present today, the HR update as we normally do. A little bit of a different look on the operations thing. We'll tie in everything operationally with the East Hants RCMP to our quarterly APP update. And the APP, I'll get to what the APP is, but it's the performance plan that we have for our office that was set in conjunction with the council. And then I'll give a 24-hour policing update. First slide, so 28 resources municipally funded. 6 of them are off. 3 of them are not in the office. 3 of them are in the office doing a gradual return to work. So that puts us at 22. It's important to note the provincially funded assets that we have in our office. We have 2 street crime units, a police service dog, and the part that doesn't show up on any of this, and I've been trying to figure out the best way to tell the story, is we're using 2 reservists to fill some gaps that are caused by these bodies that are missing above. And a reservist is a retired police officer that's opted to come back in the best the best description of what a reservist is a part-time police officer that is fully trained as a police officer, retired, but liked it so much they're coming back again. So here's that APP that I was talking about. So within the APP, we've got 4 priorities. So the priorities are road safety, community engagement, proactive drug and criminal enforcement, and improved data to support decision-making. That's a conversation that I've had with numerous staffers and numerous members of this committee with regards to priority 4 with the improved data. That's not 100% for us. The data was always there for us, but we're trying to share it with you guys to let you guys, to help you guys with your decision-making on resourcing and my Yelp review reading, I guess. So under road safety, it's always nice to have a nice picture that that's not 90 kilometers as the speed limit. It's 151 is what the person was doing on the highway. Some of you might actually recognize that stretch of highway being the 102. One of our members ended up catching a person at 151, which is 9 kilometers below a stunting amount. It's great to just talk about the fact that we're catching speeders, and we only catch a small portion of them. But taking it one step further, and you'll see later on in my presentation with regards to the 3 E's that the ministers have discussed, enforcement, education, and engineering. We're, as police, we can deal with 2 of those, which is the enforcement, of course, getting them on the radar and giving a speeding ticket, but the education that comes with it. It's some people will call it chastising, not necessarily when it's done properly, in the sense that we make the person understand that, to steal words from everywhere else, speed hurts people, right? Like speeding vehicles does have an impact, more than just financially on them. But we also throw the education in there that receiving tickets also has an impact on them financially with regards to their insurance. The next slide, thank you. Road safety, again, so in 2024, East Hants RCMP attended 436 motor vehicle collisions. 150 of them were deemed serious, 6 of them were fatal. The picture that you're seeing there, some may recognize the intersection. That's Cheese Factory corner, the intersection of the 202 and the, sorry?
Not Cheese Factory.
Sorry, further down from Cheese. South Rawdon, yes, sorry. The intersection of the 202 and the 14. It's a particularly bad stretch of roadway that you're looking at there, so much so that our traffic analysts that came out when they did the analysis of the last accident that was there said, I've already got part of the mapping from the previous time I was here 6 months ago, right? So to me, 1 time is bad enough to have a serious accident at an intersection, let alone 2.
There's more than 2.
Yeah, but I'm talking about when the traffic analyst came out to analyze it. So within the road safety, I'll step away from our response a little bit from the APP and talk about something that we're going to be doing in the future. So the three E's: engineering, enforcement, and education. Enforcement and education, as police, we definitely have control over, and when we are able to do it, we do it. The engineering piece is another part, and this is not a pointing fingers. It's a multifaceted approach. Can you slide right back to that previous slide? You guys look in the distance in that slide. That's an 80 kilometer per hour zone. Not maybe another 100 feet from there, there's a residence. On the other side of it, there's a blind hill and a blind turn on the other side. On the 202 leading on to the 314, I speak about it like I was there because I was just there. I was just there at this accident. I'm the one who took that picture. On the 202, the stop signs are a little bit back, and especially when foliage starts to grow in those trees, almost a blind intersection. So we speak to the engineering portion of not just that intersection, but of a lot of these. So statistically based, what we have been working on through the Criminal Operations Unit for the province and through the collision analyst is giving some stats with regards to how fast people are going through these areas, what could be done to prevent these things. That's something that we as the RCMP with Criminal Operations Support Unit are committed to working with TIR, Transportation Infrastructure Renewal, with regards to the engineering piece on that. I don't blame TIR, I don't blame anybody. This here was one of those things that the engineering did not foster a safer environment, I'm not going to say a safe environment, a safer environment, in which something as simple as moving stop signs, but recommendations that we can make to TIR with stats should be able to help the two agencies work together to make the roads a little bit safer. With regards to community engagement, so some photographs. This is the part that I really like presenting on. Community engagement. So April 10th, the first photograph you see there is Constable Brad Randall, one of our new members under 7-month service now, and Corporal Laurie Haynes, who's been in Nova Scotia for quite some time. Corporal Laurie Haynes is with the Commercial Crimes Unit that works out of our headquarters unit. So they gave a presentation on at the Senior Safety Seminar or Expo in Elmsdale. They were talking about scams that target seniors. Well, they target everybody, but seniors seem to be the ones that fall victim to these scams quite a bit. So telephone scams, internet scams, and how to prevent themselves from being a victim of those scams. A presentation so effective that we've been asked to provide the exact same presentation in June, I believe, is the next Senior Safety Expo. So we're working on that, either with Corporal Haynes or somebody from his unit, to at least provide us some of the presentation material that he gave that day. Below that, you'll see one of our more senior members of our detachment, Constable Woolcock, and of course he's not wearing his vest because he's decided to give it to a young fella who ate 3 donuts that night, by the way, at the Kennecott Town Hall. The question was quite simple to Constable Woolcock, is how heavy is your vest? And he was trying to explain how heavy it was, and the child just wasn't grasping the concept, so he said, "Here, it's this heavy." Of course, he didn't let him wear the gun belt and the taser and all those things, but the young fellow got a great appreciation. It's this type of stuff that I'd love to catch with our community engagement. Making the children see the police in a different light so that they're not scared every time they see us. Like, I mean, there's of all the things that pains me when I'm walking around in uniform, it's when parents turn around and tell their kids, "Hey, if you don't start acting nice, that guy's going to arrest you." I don't want them to see us that way. Like, I do want them to see us as people and people that they can approach. Anyways, this town hall that the vest photograph is from is part of the RCMP East Hants commitment to a formalized community engagement. We'll do these things quarterly. We'll pick different communities within the area. I believe the next one that we're looking at is Mount Uniacke, but we haven't set a date for that, and that will be within this quarter. From one new member with Constable Randall to Constable Atwell. Constable Atwell, you see her there saluting the flag as we're bringing the flag down to half-mast for the morning of the Pope. And the last photograph, and this was insistent by our district policing officer that this get included in the report. That's me, all the way on the left of the photograph. Yes, at the Queen's Mark, and yes, that is the Halifax Harbour. I led a group of Special Olympics athletes and volunteers from Sackville, Fall River, Lance, Elmsdale, Mount Uniacke, Bedford. We have quite a array of them in in that group. I led them into a polar plunge in which we raised $7,500 for Special Olympics Nova Scotia. So up to our school safety resources. Within the APP, I'm not saying this doesn't match. It's trying to figure out what column to put this in, because yes, there's data, but yes, there's also an engagement piece to speak to here. So it did fall within the engagement for me. With regards to the code green, blue, black. And those are the lockdown drills that they have at school. Very important, so important that we're mandated to run so many drills within each semester. And as you can see here by the chart, we've completed what we're mandated. Doesn't mean we're not doing more. I think they're fantastic. In each one of these events, so I attended 2 of these, there is some great learning things to happen, and there is also some great engagement. The one at the Enfield District School, I'll speak to a bit of an engagement piece. And well, one child was caught in the hallway with all the doors locked and couldn't figure out what to do when all these police officers were walking towards him. There's a great opportunity to teach there, not only to the child, but to the staff there. And you got to remember that these are human beings, and this is just an exercise. In a real situation, we explain this to the staff, we would literally walk by that child, because we're not there to save one child, we're there to save the whole amount of them. But we did stop and took a learning point with the school principal to say, hey, by the way, if a child is left in the hallway, this is what's going to happen. Our police officers, of course, the 4 of us that were in that group, we are human. We actually started to question, why would we walk by a child that's crying in a hallway? And of course, we have to think in the greater good. But within that, there was a procedure that was come up with regards to teachers closest to washrooms, because that's what happened in this one. The child was in the washroom. Teachers closest to the washrooms will immediately go to the washroom and check that there's nobody in there. So some modifications that are being done on our part. And again, we made that into a great learning point. I hate making it a negative for children, especially when it comes to dealing with the police. And if we did that drill the way we were supposed to do it, that child would sit there and say, well, I hate the police. They walk right by me, and I was really upset. Well, let's stop. Let's deal with it. And then somebody else can stay, deal with the aftercare, and we'll continue the drill. So needless to say, I do believe there is a lot to be practiced into that. And quite honestly, for something that I hope never, ever, ever is needed. But we have already required to have a code blue in one of our schools out here. So I can't say never. I can say I'm glad it was a false alarm, but I can't say never. And it's something that we really need to be practicing. And hats off to our school safety resource who roped in some people, including one of our officers from headquarters, to come in and observe those drills. Off to the proactive side. So here's some pictures of our East Hants Street Crime Enforcement Unit and what they've been up to. Keep in mind, these 6 search warrants I talk about are the last quarter, so 3 months. It's nice to say that over there's a fellow that sells drugs. Over there's a fellow that has guns, but they need to be able to breach the charter. Well, I shouldn't say breach, to overcome the charter with regards to a judge, so much so that a judge is able to tell them, hey, by the way, I believe you. I believe on reasonable grounds that you should you can supersede their charter, and I say it's okay to do so. But in order to do that, each one of these photographs has probably got weeks upon weeks of affidavit writing, and an affidavit is just a story that we tell to the judge based on facts. That we need to go into these places to take these things. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes with our plainclothes units and our street crime units that bring these things in. So, you can see the stuff that was seized in those: crack cocaine, hash, fentanyl, something that's gotten a lot of traction with our our recent interest in providing stats for fentanyl files, firearms, and some very large quantities of cash. On to we're continuing with the criminal enforcement. So criminal enforcement is not only preventing crimes, it's trying to deal with offender management with regards to somebody who's already committed a crime and has now been released into our community. We are saddled with quite a few people that get released into the community. Within East Hants, we have 12 of them that actually have curfews. 12 of them, and I think we added 2 more just this week. So there is quite a few that have curfews. It's probably one of the more invasive things that we do, especially if the order says prove compliance on it. The prove compliance is a blanketed warrant for our members to actually knock on the door, enter the house to make sure that the person's there. Quite an invasive thing. Most of the time, I'm going to say 95 to 99% of the time, our offenders that we manage are actually quite compliant to the point that they know that we're coming, they'll see us, they literally come to the door to prove compliance. The small percentage of the time that they do not comply, we'll document, we put together a court package, and more charges are generated as a result. Either when we do catch the person out in the community, they are arrested for that offense, or if we can't catch them in the community, we put another warrant out for their arrest, and we literally tell the judge, hey, by the way, you let that person go and you told them to do this, and they didn't. Therefore, we need stricter conditions. Sorry for the very simplified version of what we tell the judge, but it is simple like that. However, there's quite a bit of documentation that follows with it. So not necessarily within the criminal or drug enforcement of Citizens on Patrol, but I thought I would throw it in here because what Citizens on Patrol provide us is a real-time reporting, a real-time eyes and ears in the community, and they've got a direct line to us. So you've heard me say before that the police can't be everywhere all at once. Well, Citizens on Patrol can't be everywhere all at once, but they extend us that much more that they will call us directly and let us know where they are. A lot of times we already know what area they're working in. Currently, we have 8 people in different parts of the process. I'll back up a little bit with Citizens on Patrol. Citizens on Patrol was something that we had pre-COVID in East Hants. So I had to do a little bit of history checking as to why. Part of the reason was COVID, and part of the reason was that the crime prevention group, which is completely separate from the RCMP, but was a RCMP supported group, had an idea of let's try to get seed funding for a different federal program, not Citizens on Patrol. It actually was to the point that I was very supportive of this, because if you're going to throw free money at us to do something, let's do it. The only problem is that the federal funding fell through for them, and our crime prevention group ended up dissolving in East Hants shortly after, which left us with this gap that we have become accustomed to having, the real-time eyes and ears. So we've started back up this program. Currently, it's Constable Myatt in our office that is overseeing this program in addition to his duties, and he's trying to get these 8 volunteers through. So we're hoping to have these guys up and running by the summertime, and hopefully we'll see Citizens on Patrol out there. Back to the information. So eyes and ears. So the Citizens on Patrol are eyes and ears that we have direct contact with, and we have, I'm not going to say control over, but we do have influence over their movements. Anonymous police information, we do not. This is stuff that comes through in a variety of means. You hear them all the time. We hear Crime Stoppers wants your information, not your identity. We'll have people call in anonymously through our police lines. We'll have people show up at the police station that want to provide information, but they want to be anonymous. I like it. The only problem with anonymous police information is it requires a little bit of corroborating, not a little bit, a lot of corroborating, because we have this great thing called the Charter of Rights in Canada, in which, based on the fact that we just heard that Johnny so-and-so down the street has drugs in his house, well, we can't barge through his door without getting some sort of authorization. Judges will not look at anonymous police information as information that's valuable by itself. It has to be corroborated by something else. So that's where we end up with our confidential informants. Other ways that we corroborate things, we'll do some surveillance, we'll do some police checks. And these are some of the things that satisfy judges that allow us to go through against the charter rights of these people. Under the data to support decision-making, a chart that looks a little bit different from what you're seeing before, and of course we in the RCMP have switched programs. Our Microsoft 365 is now taken over, and in taken over has gotten rid of some of the nice graphics that we had previously designed. So as time goes on, we'll probably get some nicer graphics, but I apologize, and I apologize for the crudeness of these charts. But through the quarter, so we're talking February, March, and April, our leading stuff is still traffic, right? So we're still talking 47% traffic in the area. It's not to say that that's what takes up the most of our time. The majority of our time is actually persons crimes. Persons crimes take up a lot of time, and well-being checks, I don't think that's even made, mental health and wellness. These 26 calls for February, 34 calls for March, and 28 calls for April. Can be something as simple as we knock on the door and, that person seems okay. We have a little bit more of a chat with them. Turns out, okay, they're great, they've got supports. It's a regular mental illness, all the way up to the Involuntary Psychiatric Treatment Act, where somebody actually requires us to step in, and the law says that we will step in and we will actually arrest that person under the Involuntary Psychiatric Treatment Act. What that triggers for a lot of our members is they'll turn around and they'll say, great, I'm stuck for 18 hours. Because that is our prisoner until a doctor sees them. That is our prisoner at the hospital till the doctor sees them. We were in the process, and other police agencies across the province were in the process of making arrangements with hospitals for private security, but that all went by the wayside when somebody in Halifax decided that they wanted to draw a knife in the emergency room. Not even an IPTA, an Involuntary Psychiatric Treatment Act, but they took a step back and said, yeah, we want to refund the police because we don't want to defund the police now. We need the police in our emergency rooms. You have to stay with your prisoners now. It's even to the point where we will provide courtesy rides to people that don't necessarily have to go in an ambulance, but an ambulance is an hour and a half away. We'll drive them to the hospital. It's gotten to the point where the hospital staff have to ask our member about 1,000 times, are you sure they're not here against their will? Are you sure they're not under arrest? I said, well, no, talk to the person. Like they literally came in here with a twisted ankle, and waiting for an ambulance wasn't reasonable. So it's something that sucks up a lot of our time, and I'm sorry, it's actually taken more time in the presentation than I wanted it to, but it does take up quite a bit of our time. So when you're talking about where our resources need to be, well, they may not necessarily need to be a guard for somebody at a hospital, but at the same time, the law is requiring us to keep that person in our custody. So there's not a whole lot really to say with regards to those stats. Like statistically speaking, month to month, it's really hard to say that there is any trend. The trends that I would turn around and say would be year-to-year comparisons of a large sum of data. So, like, I mean, you get a small amount of data, you can pretty much say that one area is really bad. Like on January 1st, I could probably say that East Hants was probably one of the safest or the worst communities, depending on what the first call of the year was, right? So in 2025, if our first call was a barking dog, oh, we've got the safest community in 2025. But if our first call was a very serious assault, we now have the most violent community in 2025. Until we get more of a data set to offset those things, it's not really reliable to say that that data is what our community breakup is. So you can even see it from month to month here, from February to March to April. Those numbers fluctuate quite a bit, total numbers. Percentages generally stay close. So it's safe to say, not going by the numbers, but by going by percentage, traffic is our biggest issue. We skip forward April, yeah. Oh, thank you. Are there any questions on that portion of the presentation? There are other portions of the presentation. You guys have all seen the other portions. I'm more than happy to answer during that portion.
All right. Now, that being the report, I'll open the floor and my screen is lighting up, and for questions. First up, Warden Olson.
Thank you. Yes, going back to that intersection, and I'm not going to dwell on the most latest incident at that intersection. Because
I was there.
I assume it's still under investigation. But since the repaving of South Rodden Road, the 202 there, previous to the last repaving, there were rumble strips at that intersection, which gradually became, as you got closer to the stop sign. And anecdotally, I've been told that numerous residents have called DOT, Public Works, whatever, and really trying to say, you should put those rumble strips back. They made a difference. So I just put that out there now that perhaps, the RCMP was to have a look at that. That might have a little more influence, because I can tell you from experience, when you used to come up that road, you slowed down. I mean, I slowed down anyway. I know the road well. But anybody, once you start and hit those rumble strips, you're slowing your roll. And,
So that speaks to the 30 in the threes and the engineering. And while I'm not going to say the RCMP don't have any influence on that, we physically don't put rumble strips in roads.
No, I
That's up to
understand
TIR. And working with TIR, there's a lot of rationales that have to go into things, and a lot of things don't happen fast enough for anybody's liking, I'd say, especially when you're that close to a situation. But trust that it is, the stats get put in. Every time we have one of these types of accidents, the Department of Justice is actually aware. So there's even more people that are aware of these things.
I guess my point was that even if the RCMP were to ask the question,
Yep.
why were the rumble strips not replaced? That might generate some additional thought on the issue. And your comments on the data sets and that, I understand that, but I would say that, for me at least, and I think probably for most of us, at least when we get these month by month, it paints a picture of that month for us.
Absolutely.
It tells us
Yeah.
what happened that month, and that's information that we need and that we like to have. So I understand that one day out of the month doesn't provide, but we don't get reports based on one day. We get the full months, and that allows us to see a snapshot of that month. So anyway, I think any other questions I might have would be on the next presentation, so I'll leave it for other folks for now.
That all, Warden?
Yeah.
All right, next up, Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Great presentation. And when you bring up the hotspot, council knows that there's a problem there, and probably we try to fix it and direct it to the right people. But for some reason, the hotspot in Mount Uniacke are not coming to council. So talking about hotspot in the last 2 years by the Richard John Drive and the Withrow Farm, there was 3 accidents so far. One of them, somebody failed to stop, and he went into a parking lot. He ran over like the manager and serving a customer, and luckily nobody got hurt, nobody got killed, like they were in the hospital. Then a few months later, a bad accident happened at the same spot. A lady tried to turn to to Withrow, and somebody hit her from behind, dragged her into another truck coming. She was lucky to survive it. And last month, we had another 3-car accident there, but I don't know why it's not coming here. I'm not blaming anybody, but if for some reason the RCMP from Sackville were first on scene, they report to you or they report to other area.
So I'll answer the last portion of it. If it falls within that area, within the East Hants jurisdiction, the file ends up being owned by East Hants RCMP, regardless of who responds first. So Mount Uniacke is one of our areas that sees multiple police agencies respond just by who's closer to it. But at the end of the day, the discussion that's always had on the ground by the members is, so whose area is this in? Great, you guys will take the accident report. So we do, if it did happen in that area, we do have a log of it.
And how come it doesn't come to us like here in a report?
Quarterly,
That's a serious issue to have like 3 almost fatal accident in the same place on Highway 1. And unfortunately, yesterday was 3-car crash at the Irving. It shouldn't make this report, but probably will make the other
this
one.
report was done last
no,
week.
I know it wouldn't make this one, but probably would make the next one. But we have those 2 hotspots in Mount Uniacke, and we're trying. Jesse tried so many times to reduce the speed and stuff, but I don't know what could be done about it. But
So again, speaks to the engineering piece of the enforcement and engineering, and enforcement education are, like I said, are well within the control, and it's something that we try to do in that area. In fact, the provincial traffic unit has been out to that area to supplement our numbers out there. I personally have been out there and ran radar, and I've dealt with the school bus issue up at Lakelands twice. So both times giving tickets to somebody for passing. We went up with the unmarked vehicle for that operation, right?
no, I'm not accusing you of doing. I know we never seen as many cars as we've seen lately, but for some reason I don't know, like that stretch from the Irving to the Withrow Farm, it's a stretch with 80 zone or something, and it's a racetrack. And I've seen a lot of police car there, but unfortunately not at the right time or not at the right moment, right? But it's dangerous. Like I work there across street, and all you hear is people like revving their cars over there, and I don't know what could be done about it, but it's an area of concern for me. So thank you.
No, Councillor Musa?
Yes, thank you.
Next up, Councillor Deputy Warden McPhee.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to, Staff Sergeant. I just want a clarification there on one of the first slides. You said about the 150, the person was caught at 151 and 110, and they were 9 kilometers under for stunting, so.
Yeah.
So stunning is you have to be 50?
50.
Okay, I was under the impression it was 40. I just
Yeah,
wanted to clarify.
and stunning carries its own charge. It's beyond what speeding is. That gives our officers more powers within the Motor Vehicle Act to seize a vehicle, to suspend a license right at the side of the road, and more of the prevention piece. Up until that point, that person's wearing a pretty hefty speeding ticket.
So is there, when they're over 30, do they still get a higher fine or anything? I
Yeah.
thought, okay.
It's a
it was
graded fines all the way through.
Okay, that's what I thought. And the other one, question I had was for Sergeant McCrae, but now that I understand.
That's
why he
not
didn't-
Scott.
I had left a message with him and wondered why he didn't get back, and I thought, well, I'll just ask him today.
Yeah.
But it's to do with a traffic issue, and possibly be all right if I just send it to one of you rather than discuss it, go into a discussion now.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
That
That's
all,
everything.
Deputy Warden? Thank you very much. Next up, Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through your staff, I remember the last time we had our quarterly report, we talked about a certain problem individual and possible, some people in the community feeling unsafe, and lo and behold, the next day, one of the residents woke up to hearing the crunchy snow in his backyard, seen a dark figure go down over the hill, and looked out his window and saw a guy with a rifle in black. He went to the kitchen to call the RCMP and noticed the RCMP were parked in his driveway. And there was a major operation going on to the house next door to him. And I just want to pass on from that resident to the RCMP, thank you very much. And especially coming and talking to him once the light went on in his house in the early morning hours, telling him to calm down, and especially, understanding the resources that were brought to bear. The helicopter was out and everything else, and it really got the community rolling at 5 a.m. in the morning. But it's great to see these resources brought to bear when things are needed. And this is another instance in the last year where, with going back to what happened in October at the school and all these other things, that it's all noticed by the community, and the community is thankful that when something is needed, the response is there. So I just want to pass on from this resident who told me personally to say thank you for what you guys did, and in the manner and professionalism that it was done. So that's the first thing. I was going to bring up, similar to Councillor Musa, hotspots, and I bet you if we went around this whole table, every area has a hotspot, and it's one of those things that I know, being on council for a number of years, we've sent multiple requests to Public Works. It took at least 7 to 8 years of lobbying just to get a section of the number 1 dropped by 10 kilometers an hour. And I know currently the MLAs are working on getting other things done in the Mount Uniacke area, and as well as other areas of the municipality to provide a safer driving for the residents. But these things just take an awful lot of time, and I don't think it's at the elected official level, it's at the bureaucratic level once you get into the Department of Public Works. That's my personal opinion. But no, I just want to say thank you. And of course, upcoming events, I know are on the calendar for the Uniacke Firefighters Fair Parade. We look forward to seeing you there. Also, when it comes to engaging with the community, I do know that almost all of the schools throughout East Hants seem to have a spring fair or fall fair or things like that. And they're always looking for people to come and do tables and things like that. And I mean, I think it would be a great way to interact with the community in a way like that these school fundraise events might be a good positive way for the RCMP to interact with all different age groups, because they all do a different level of fundraising. I know at the high schools, sometimes the big fundraisers are towards SafeGrad. And I believe the RCMP would definitely be beneficial, assisting and taking part in activities that promote a safe graduation as well. Just a couple of thoughts that you might be able to throw through your staff, and I'm pretty sure all these ideas are already there and are already working. And the last thing I want to say is, well done on taking the dip in the Queen's Marquee. I hope you have all your tetanus shots up to date, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Is that all, Councillor?
Yes.
Next up would be Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to Staff Sergeant. Human trafficking, would that be under crime against persons in your filing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I noticed when I called the office in Enfield that I'm requested to give my name, address, et cetera. Is that standard protocol?
Yes, I'm going to say yes. There's times where that doesn't come out first. If somebody's turning around and they have important information to get out, we won't bother them with, hang on a second, I need your name, your date of birth, all this stuff.
So if I called down a couple of times to chat with you, but that was the first thing that I had to give, name,
That's not them
address.
screening the phone calls.
Okay. And the third item deals with cannabis. Do you guys check for overgrowth limits if they're growing more plants than they're allowed? And I have some complaints from some of my residents about smell, and I guess it stems back that who's ever growing them is growing them close to the property line, and the smell is wafting over to the neighbors. Do you guys deal with any of that, or is that something that's between neighbors?
I'm not going to say we don't deal with it. There's a law there. I'm going to say statistically, it's not high on our radar of things that we deal with ever since they've legalized cannabis.
That's what I mentioned it to him.
But if you want to give me the information afterwards, we can certainly have a look at that information.
Okay. And the last one is deal with Code Black. When you do evacuation and relocation, are special needs children a high priority?
It's included in the plan. There is always a plan for everybody. It's an inclusive thing, and a lot of times what Constable Ouellette will do is work with the school as to, because the structures of schools are all different. Sometimes you will have to evacuate a certain way. Sometimes bus might be a required thing. I'm just saying sometimes, but it's situation by situation, I guess is the best way to put it with regards to that, but it is looked at.
And the last item deals with search and rescue. You guys are well coordinated with ground search and rescue when you're on,
Ground search and rescue is, we have, for insurance purposes, we have an embedded body with the commander for ground search and rescues is an RCMP member. Not necessarily from our office. This is the surge capacity that the police and the RCMP bring to the table is that so our last ground search and rescue out here was actually commanded by a Colchester member. Yes, so to answer your question, yes, we have great coordination with them in the fact that we have people that we can consult before we even call them out.
that's all, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Next up, Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Chair. I guess questions for you guys. Biggest complaint I get is people walking on the roads, safety, and I'm in the infield area, Shamrock Lane, over to Albany Drive. I know it's a concern in Elmwood Drive and probably in Milford and Mount Uniac. Is there anything we, and I guess we as a group, can do to work against this signage? Speed bumps don't work. That was probably a good investment that went wrong, I think. Education, sort of thrown out as a general discussion. How can we help you? Is there a way we can help?
Yeah, so I go back to the three E's that the ministers brought up, right? The enforcement, education, and engineering. So you hit on all three of those points, and they just have to work a little bit better together. So when you're talking about municipal roads, and it may be a little bit out of my lane to speak to it, it's not a TIR function, that's a
Well,
municipality function.
Some of the roads are provincial, some
Yeah,
are
so
municipal.
figuring out which road it is, and if you have a hard time, like if you're at your constituents or you are having a hard time figuring out which one it is, generally speaking, if it has a number on it, it's a highway, it's provincially run.
Because the biggest problem we have is ditches, and we'll probably never be able to get the ditches filled in, so the people have to walk on the shoulder. And it's just making it unsafe. If there's something way to get around it. I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
I don't have a taser either.
Yeah, and our bag of tricks is fairly limited to that, is knowing when it's going on, and when we get a chance, and I will speak to it with proactive patrols. Proactive patrols are helpful, but they're only helpful when we're there, right?
So I suspect probably the best thing we can do is have the residents report it, so it
Call
becomes a
us.
stat.
Yes.
Pictures of vehicles, is that in it help?
Yeah, pictures
So
of
this is
vehicles,
like
license plates. Those don't fall into the black hole of reporting, although some people may think it does, just because it doesn't result in somebody getting charged, but it does identify somebody for us. And our guys can't close a file unless they speak to somebody, right?
Okay.
So it does happen.
My intent would be to pass it on, and hopefully we'll get
Yeah.
some results. No, that's everything I have. This is also Police Week, I understand, is it not?
This week is Police Week, that's correct, yeah.
Just want to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome, sir. Next up, Public Member Pelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question to circle back to what you were saying with your time spent with patients in ERs and things like that. I think that also extends to other first responders and paramedics and things like that, that there's a lot of that going on. I'm just wondering, would that be like a provincial government thing, that if we wanted to try to have something done about it, that would be where it would go to be funded, or?
Good question. I don't have an answer for you. I don't. Like, I have my reporting lines for these types of things, so anytime that my officers spend an enormous amount of time dealing with medical calls or at the hospital, there to report it to us and how many hours these have. We in turn report that to our criminal operations support, and through their reporting line, put it through to Department of Justice, and through the Department of Justice, they'll fan that out. I know it sounds like a lot of different places to call when I can just call Joey down the street and say, hey, by the way, my guy spent 18 hours in your hospital. But apparently, if we want to fix things on a broader base for Nova Scotia, this is the avenue.
Okay, I just would like to try to find out a little more about it, because I know that you've identified that sometimes you've left somebody or would be bringing somebody that might need more focused attention. I know that the paramedics sometimes bring in people that could be there and aren't a threat to anyone, and they are also, that time where they could be helping somebody else is also spent that way. So I just wanted to know a little more about it. That's all, thank you.
Thank you, public member. Next up, Councillor Sandergaard Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that report this morning. Just wanted to touch on what Councillor Dixon had brought up about speeding in the subdivisions and the areas of Enfield where there are no sidewalks to walk on. And I realize that, lack of sidewalks and that kind of thing are not, don't have anything to do with policing, but the outcome, which is people walking through subdivisions where the speeds are too high, the shoulders aren't great. Now that CCRCE has changed the rules, we've got kids walking through those subdivisions to get to a school that happens to be within the bounds of the subdivision. So it's definitely problematic. So one thing that would have something to do maybe with policing or maybe getting your support is the speed that is posted in these subdivisions, which is 50 kilometers an hour. And when you think about that, to have a speed through a slow subdivision at 50 kilometers an hour, which is the same as what's on the number 2, just doesn't make sense to me. And it seems so much faster when someone is driving that speed going through a pokey subdivision. So I'm just going to send this to staff, maybe to Jesse. That speed is set by the province, is that correct?
District Director Holzman. Oh, I got to take one off.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the speed limits ultimately for residential roads is governed by the Motor Vehicle Act. You can put in requests to the province to change that. You cannot just change the speed limit. You have to change the design of the road to reflect a lower speed limit. What has been done in some areas, in HRM, for example, is that they have installed several speed bumps, then applied to change speed limits and get approvals to change the speed limits. And you have to change your posting as well, the posting requirements. So in the Motor Vehicle Act, you're going to see, if otherwise posted, the speed limit is 50. So that creates some confusion if you have different neighborhoods with different speed limits. And so you have to really post those signs everywhere. Versus the normal is a subdivision you enter, there's one speed sign in it, it governs the entire subdivision. So there's a lot to it, but something that can be explored further if that was something that East Hants wanted to get into.
Okay, thank you. I was just thinking that we have taken measures to put speed bumps in and some extra stop signs, and while they don't solve all the problems, I know as a counselor, I definitely received less complaints about speeding in those areas than I did before they went up. So it definitely has had some effect, maybe not, it's not solving all the problems, that's for sure. But I just wanted to get an idea of what it would take to apply, and if the RCMP would be in support of, say, if we were to look into possibly getting the speed limit lowered, would that be something that we could get your support in saying, yeah, we think it would be beneficial, you know? Is there any reason why you would not support that, or?
Anything that would make a road safer, I'd support. I'd support people not being allowed to drive, quite honestly, but.
Well, I mean, if, you know, if we happen to be able to say, you know, our local RCMP agrees that, you know, lowering it to 40 kilometers or whatever. And as well, it has to be enforceable. You can post whatever what signage you want on a road, but, you know, what people are going to drive is a different story. But 50 does seem high in a subdivision compared to a number 2 highway. And that's across the board, I'm sure, in Mount Uniacke or Shubenacadie or wherever. But we do have some things in place in this particular area with the stop signs and the speed bumps to maybe have some leverage to make that request. So just wanted to see if that might be something that you would be able to support. And my only other comment was that you talk about the, you know, the connection in the community. And the group get-togethers are great, that's for sure. But my sister had her grandson out up in Rhines Creek on their lawn, and she happened to have her 12-year-old grandson out with her. And he loves police and police cars and all that. He happens to have some special needs. And when he was waving down a police car going by, a constable, Barutsky, Alyssa, pulled in. He was a little worried at first, actually, but she pulled in, must have had a little bit of time, and he got to sit in the car and do the lights and sirens. And it was a small act, but it made a big impact on them. They were very appreciative. So little things like that really do make a difference. So thank you to that constable. And that's it from me. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Next up, Councillor Perry.
My apologies, Mr. Chair. There was one thing I did forget. As this is fire season and high risk for fire season, I've been approached by a number of residents, and I'm just wondering, is there a cohort in the springtime when we approach fire season between the police service, the fire service, and DNR about how, when these illegal burns are happening during fire bans, they are to be reported, enforced, and the people who do them to be fined? The fines that are appropriate and have been levied by the province, because I've been getting reports of people calling and the fire department comes out, but there's been no fines issued, and certain things like this. And some of them deal with with Airbnbs or new people to the area and things like this. So I'm just wondering if there's a cohort and if there's a plan in place that when a call like this does come in, all the agencies are kind of notified, or do they have to call 3 different people to get the enforcement part done?
So I'll say generally no, and I'll make a generalization. Doesn't mean that it, exactly what you're saying does or does not happen. But if the fire department does get a call for these fires, it usually is dealt with there. The fire department has the ability to issue an ordinance for fires. So do the police. So does DNR. Right, so we all have that in common. To steal from the road safety part is the enforcement and the education piece. The education piece, I'm sure enough of our police officers are able to direct them to a website as to when it's safe to burn and everything like that. And the fire department would probably provide a much better education piece than we would on that. But to answer your question with regards to cohorts, like, I mean, if it is a call that ends up coming through to RCMP in the public safety capacity, we will attend if there's a public safety issue there. But if it's not a public safety issue, we will try to defer to the fire department, or at least get answers from the fire department before we go out, so we can give a good education piece.
Okay, no, just because there's been, I've been contacted, by 2 different road associations about burnings happening during the non-burning periods, and it seems like there's been nothing really done other than, the fire department shows up and they leave. So I don't know if all the volunteer fire departments feel comfortable issuing these fines, especially with the dollar value now associated with them. So I don't know if some of more consultation needs to be done to allow them to feel a little bit better about doing it or whatever, but there has been are some growing concern, especially we're heading into cottage season in a number of weeks. It'll be the May long weekend. Everything will start to open up and you're gonna start to see a lot more people on the water, a lot more of the stuff happening. And we've had a reasonably wet spring so far, but it can dry out pretty quick. And so I just wanted to make sure that that was on the radar. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Council Perry. All right. Next up, staff.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarity for council and the public, the fire department do not issue fines. It is through the province. There is the 1-800 reporting number that the residents can call, as well as 911. So I just wanted to provide that clarity for council.
All right, we've heard the clarification. Seeing no further speakers on my list, I'll move down the agenda. The agenda states that we're in line for an in-camera session to do with public safety by the RCMP. So I'll entertain a motion to go in camera. Moved by Councillor Tingley, seconded by Deputy Warden McPhee. All those in favor? Contrary of mine, we are now moving to camera.
Okay, you're back in.
All right. I would like to, we're back in public forum. I'd like to report that we met in camera for a public and safety issue with the RCMP. Seeing no further items on the agenda of the Police Advisory Committee, I would entertain a motion to adjourn for a short break. And because I just remind, if we can keep it as short as possible, within 8 to 10 minutes, then we'll return to corporate service because we have a presentation that is right past due. So I'll entertain a motion. Move by the Deputy Warden. Seconded by Councillor Miriam. All those in favor? Contrary of mine, motion carried. We are adjourned.
first item on our agenda is the presentation of the Colchester East Hants Public Library with the Executive Director and Chief Librarian, Jeff Mercer. Go ahead.
Council, thank you for having me today.
I'm working on it.
Are we good? Oh, wow, there I am. Board and Council, thank you for having me today. It's my pleasure to be here. I just want to introduce myself. I hadn't been to Council yet, and also give you just an overview of library service in our region and some of the pressures we're feeling. So first thing, though, I do want to point out, you'll see a new logo. It's our 75th anniversary as a region this year. The Warden and Councillor Perry were at the kickoff for our celebrations at Mount Uniacke a few weeks ago. So yeah, we're very excited to celebrate that. That was a great turnout, a robust crowd, and the community support's really fantastic, and the municipal support as well is amazing. So I just wanted to point that out first off. Just a little overview of the region. So a little over 74,000 people that we serve, including our citizens here in East Hants. We have 5 branch libraries and 2 satellites in the region. In addition to our physical spaces, we have our downloadable services, audiobooks, ebooks, other digital resources. And also for people who may not be able to get to a physical library or to our satellite, we have borrow by mail and library delivery service throughout the region. In addition, about 3 years ago, we formally joined a consortium with 7 of the other regional libraries in the province. It's called Same Page. And what that does is 8 regions have gotten together, and every citizen in those regions has access to all of the collections. They can just place a hold and get any item they want from anywhere, Cape Breton, Yarmouth, wherever, come to their home library just with the click of a button. Everything goes out pretty much for 3 weeks, automatic renewals as long as no one's asking for it. We eliminated late fees at the same time, and also limits on checkout and borrowing. So over 1 million items that people have to choose from in the province, and also digital items directly from catalog as well. So that was a great advance in service, which is amazing. Also has some challenges that I'll probably touch on a little bit later. So just a little bit of the good news story. In 23-24, I'm still assembling the stats for this year, of course, but in 23-24, over 225,000 visits by people in person, almost 200,000 online. We had 1,902 programs with over 20,000 people attending. So that's my personal favorite. That just shows people really looking for our service and are attending for what we're providing. Almost 400,000 items circulated. That's digital and physical. We're getting ever closer to that magical 20,000 number. That's a really significant number if you can get active users there. And almost, just a little over 10,000 questions answered in person. And Wi-Fi usage continues to increase. And if you look at that over the previous year, again, in percentages, a 36% increase in our program attendance. That's a really amazing number there. In-person visits up by 11%, new membership 5%, and then our digital resources up, and even total checkouts up by 14%. So this is just all to say, and I'll have a bit more later, but people are using the library, they want the library, they need more library, and we're meeting what they're demanding as best we can. A little bit about the funding model, because we know that's on everybody's top of mind. And I should say before I get into the numbers, I'm not here to ask for any money. So to put you at ease a little bit, I do have a request, but it's not about money directly anyways. So yeah, the current funding model, this was a 5-year model. It's expired at the end of fiscal 24, or 25 rather. And so yeah, it's 71% provincial, 26% municipal, 3% board raised funds. That's in our model. You can see Halifax is basically the reverse there. But when you put it all together, it does mean that municipalities, even though the mandate is more provincial, municipalities are shouldering most of the load. And we can't be happier with the support from our municipal partners, but we do recognize you're punching above your weight a little bit, and maybe the province needs to help out a bit more. And these are just what the hard numbers look like. This is what our partners contribute. And what this doesn't reflect, though, are some of the capital costs. So providing an actual library space for us to operate in, paying for the lights, paying for the heat, all of that type of thing, that's not represented here. This is just that funding model that says, here's what you're mandated to provide in terms of hard dollars. So you may or may not have heard that we're undergoing a review with the province on funding. This is just a snapshot of what's happened so far. So they met through the spring, summer, and fall last year, determining recommendations for government for a new model, focusing mainly on salaries, collections, and technology. The focus, and I'll get into this a little bit later, is really on people. It's really about providing proper wages, keeping people happy, and being able to pay them properly. And then everything else we can provide after that falls into place very neatly. There were library CEOs on that. There were board members, other municipal representatives, provincial government staff from both CCTH and Municipal Affairs and Housing. So, and it was a really collaborative, very solid working group. They did a lot of research and came up with some great recommendations. And that went into government in September. Then, of course, there was an election. They went into caretaker mode, which means it didn't kind of go anywhere, but it's still there. But then when the budget was revealed, this hadn't been addressed officially. So now we still remain optimistic. We do still have a great relationship with our partners in government, and we are looking forward to continuing the discussion and getting to a resolution that works for all levels of partnership there. But we haven't heard anything official. And that's remains true now as it does in September. So, which is, a little bit disheartening, but got to remain hopeful. What our reality looks like, though, is that living wage is well above and beyond what we can pay. And even with a 2.3% cost living increase, which I'm hoping to get past with my budget this year, it still means that depending on where my employees live, either just above or just below 50% of them are not making a living wage. And as you saw those numbers, and what we've done with surveys and everything, is that the library is demanding more hours. They want more days. They want different days. They're looking for more of that in-person programming. They want stuff on Saturdays. And, of course, more items. And we're doing what we can, but we can't meet it all. I'd like to add that, based on all of this demand, I've been communicating and working with municipal staff here at the municipality just about the crunch for space and what our needs would be in the intermediate and long-term future. It's been a very positive discussion. So, but I don't like my partners to be caught unawares. But we all know this area is growing exponentially all throughout the region, the corridor, all through Mount U, everywhere. So I like to keep everyone appraised of what we're going to be looking for as we keep moving forward. And we don't see that trend changing anytime soon. The other things it means, I had someone move on to a new job, which is great, but it does illustrate, the recruitment and retention problems we have with the types of wages we're allowed to pay or able to pay, rather. It does also mean that with the funding levels from province, we're dipping into our reserves. Now, we're fortunate to have those reserves, but the average over the past 5 years was close to 200,000. Last year, it was closer to 3, and that's not sustainable. We also have had some luck in getting some really significant bequests. So a whole position is funded by bequest, and a lot of our youth services are funded by a bequest. But again, that sort of means together, well, not sort of, it really means that overall we're actually operating in a deficit every year, which nobody likes to do. I certainly don't. And it does mean that the reserves are getting eaten up faster than they should be. They're not used for what they're intended. They should be for special projects, new initiatives, improvements to service. We're using them just to keep things going as best we can at the level that we're at. And we're not there yet, but if we keep going like this, it's only a matter of time where eventually we will have to get fewer hours, maybe close branches or at least close days, and eventually then cut service, cut programs, staff layoffs, etc. So that's us in a nutshell. I want to thank you all for hearing me out today, and I'm open to any questions, of course.
Thank you for that presentation, and those initial numbers were very impressive. You're going up, and that's very encouraging from that perspective. First, we'll hear from Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Jeff. Based on the information that you presented, looking long-term, how do you feel the viability of the library service 5 years out from today?
I mean, if funding doesn't change and costs don't change, which we all know they are going to go up, but if all of that stayed the same and we dipped into reserves at that same level, then within 4 or 5 years we'd be getting into hardcore survival mode probably. I mean, I could limp along for quite a long time by cutting service, cutting hours, cutting programs, etc. But to just stay where we're at, that reserve fund would get depleted pretty rapidly. I think that would be the time frame we're at.
What's the first thing that would be cut?
I'd probably look at hours first. I think we'd start shrinking hours. Then, but at the same time, probably looking at those digital resources. Those would be the top two because they're the most expensive, essentially. Collections would follow pretty quickly after that. And then, then it gets into days and staff.
Do you see going forward that staff might look for other employment based on the cost of living?
Yeah, I do. I mean, they love what they do. They're really good at it. They're passionate about it, but they got bills to pay. I mean, we have rent, etc. I wouldn't blame them. I mean, I know I have staff already who are working a second job, maybe a third one, so just to make sure everything happens. And we're doing the best we can for sure. But like what I alluded to with limping along, I mean, I essentially could pay people better and have them doing nothing, which doesn't serve anyone really very well. So, and that would last for a while, but no one would be fulfilled. The public wouldn't be served properly. That would just, that would be an empty shell of a library. I'm not looking to do that.
Last question through you, Madam Chair. Do you anticipate in the next year or next months or year that the funding model will be decided and which will benefit all the libraries across the province?
I mean, I have to remain optimistic. I don't have any sense of a timeline on that. I mean, I have been speaking with councils such as yourselves. I've been speaking with the MLAs in the area. Councillor Perry, as our board chair, has been going with me to those meetings. They've all been very positive and receptive. Some MLAs knew about the funding review, some didn't, but I know that they're all talking with each other. And the department, the minister is in our region. Minister Rissi is our CCTH. So I've met with him and that was well received. He's aware of the funding review. So I'm hoping that something is decided this year. I don't know what that will be. I don't know that it would impact this year, but the minister would know better than I for sure. But every library needs it. We're fortunate with those reserves, more fortunate than some of our neighbors. If you look at certain other regions that border us, they're in rougher shape than we are. But everyone's going to get to that point at some point. And so we're trying to get to a point where we can serve our public as we want to and as they're looking for it to be done. And this is where I'm coming to you. So as I said, I'm not asking for money. What I am asking of my municipal partners who've really been more supportive than they maybe needed to be, but we really appreciate, is this advocacy with province. Speak with your colleagues on other municipal partners. Try and talk to your provincial government colleagues and say, hey, listen, we're working really hard. We're doing what we can. We need you to maybe push this along a bit farther and get to a resolution that works for our citizens. So that's what I'm asking for today.
Thanks for the presentation. I think makes council aware of the value of the libraries and hopefully it'll be passed on to our MLAs in the province.
Thank you, Councillor. Next to speak is Councillor Merriam.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Jeff. Thanks for your presentation. That was great. One of the questions I had was on digital costs, and you referred to that in your presentation. And I was curious. I'm actually a user. I have a Libby app, so I'm very familiar with that. And I've always kind of wondered. Just a few questions for you. So one would be when I borrow a digital ebook from the library, how much does that cost?
So that kind of varies by publisher.
Okay.
And I can pull some hard numbers together for you if you like. I know that the average digital book can cost anywhere from 4 to 12 times a physical book. It depends, like I say, on the publisher in that model. So it's more expensive for a digital item. That changes every year, so that's why it's kind of hard to pin down a number. But yeah,
I was thinking, there's probably the cost of acquisition of the digital book. Is that what you're referring to?
that's what I'm talking about. And
Okay.
it's not indefinite either. Usually there's a 26 circulation limit, so you
Okay.
have to relicense it as soon as somebody borrows it 26 times, whereas
Yeah.
a real book, until that falls apart, we can circuit forever. So
I'm just really curious, not hard and fast numbers, but, when I check it out, I can kind of say to myself, yeah, that costs the library on average $5, $10.
well, I would have to go back and
Okay.
pull some numbers for you for
Yeah.
that. I mean, it
I'm
does.
just curious, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I'm just gonna make some notes so I can actually answer you when I get back to the office.
Yeah, sure. Sort of a follow-up question too is you look at the way the world is changing, and I know how important libraries are as a physical gathering place for many reasons for community. But I guess part of the backdrop is as much of the world is going digital. I can't quite recall in your presentation. I'm wondering, what percent of checkouts now roughly are digital versus a physical checkout, either of a digital audio book or an ebook? Would it be half and half roughly?
It's funny you asked that because Minister Risley actually asked me the exact same question, which I sent him the numbers and I didn't bring them here.
That's
Because
okay,
why
yeah.
would I do that? But
Yeah, no, that's okay.
it's not half and half. It's not that. There's still, I think, predominantly physical, but I will definitely get you that. You might be very surprised.
Yeah, and also in terms of pressure on your costs in the run of a year. Again, I'm sure you don't have these costs, but it would be just curious. What does the digital ebook, audiobook acquisition cost in the run of a year? Be curious to it's
Yeah.
probably bigger than I thought it would be actually.
Yeah, I don't have the Overdrive number in my head, but I know Hoopla, which is one of our other major digital resources. That's about 46,000 a year.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and that's the one that a lot of regions have either cut entirely or are dropping down borrowing limits because it's so expensive. So
Yeah. Okay. And really, my last question, and in your presentation, you alluded to there will be casualties. In the current economic budget climate, could be casualties, and one could be, as you just mentioned, getting rid of digital. But how do you balance getting rid of digital when I'm assuming you have rising? When you look at where your growth areas on checkouts, would it not be every year the digital is increasing?
it certainly is, but so is physical. Like it's all increasing. That's
Okay.
the thing. And I can see I had something there, but it combined them, so that doesn't really tell you. But I can get that too. But they're both increasing. And so the cost for the license versus the cost of a physical book is quite different. But it is balanced by you don't need to store it anywhere, so that makes life a little easier in that sense. The digital took off before COVID, like a lot, and then it plateaued, and then of course it went up during the dark times, as I like to call them, because people couldn't go anywhere. But now it's matched out again pretty much, so it's not increasing as exponentially as it was in the past. Doesn't mean it's not increasing at all, but it's still growing. It just has slowed more than people maybe expected, but it's still growing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much. That's
Sure.
great.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Counselor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Jeff. I know we've gone to other meetings together, but can you just speak upon the situation that some of our neighboring library boards have been facing within this fiscal year already?
Yeah. I mean, some of them in the past fiscal year or maybe the year before have already cut programs and services by 50%. So I don't know if you want me to name any regions. I don't know,
you don't have to name regions,
but
just-
some of them have cut programs and services to 50%, basically going all the way down to just those the ones you would expect, right? They're doing story time, they're doing tech help, and they're not doing a heck of a lot else. There are branches or regions rather, who have cut hours. There was one who closed a branch last year. Their municipal partner stepped up and helped them out, but that was a 1-year thing. I mean, no one's expecting municipalities to kind of do that every year. It's a massive expense. So, who knows what's going to happen this year? People are already cutting collections budgets, things like that. I don't know that anyone's doing staff layoffs, but people are definitely talking about it. So those are the types of things that people are doing. I know a neighboring region also, just the cost of the increase of minimum wage is going to impact them to the tune of, I think, $68,000 that they just don't have in the budget right now. So, and those are the things that we support. We support increased use of library. We support increased minimum wage, things like that, of course. Doesn't make the budget easier to balance, though.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Warden Ralston.
Yes, thank you. Love the library, love Libby. Libby lives in my phone, next to Kindle. Anyway, having heard the discussion, and it would be very concerning to lose programs and good staff and even to lose the ability to increase the collection from our libraries. So I'm going to move to recommend to council to write a letter to the appropriate provincial minister and copy our MLAs, asking that the province provide libraries with appropriate resources to allow them to meet the growing needs of our population.
Okay, thank you, Warden. On before the motion, Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You talk about how expensive the digital versions of the books and stuff. So after COVID, do you have any age group that the increase in users, within the age group, are it mostly adult or children or everywhere or?
For digital only?
Digital, yeah.
That's a wide-ranging demographic. I would probably say that it's more adults and seniors, but there are definitely lots of young parents doing downloadable audiobooks for story time at their kids and things like that. And there are lots of audio and ebooks that are aimed at that the young to tween age group. So it's all growing, but I would probably feel pretty safe in saying that that young adult up to senior is who's growing the most.
My question, my concern is, I know a lot of parents now are having a hard time taking their kids away from the computer. So by giving them that option, it's gonna get them stuck to the computer more hours and stuff instead of going to the library and bring a book and stuff. So now with COVID behind us, do you think that digital option is still needed, much needed as this was during COVID, or you can slow it down, or probably the price went up because of COVID, and now that we're not in a COVID situation, if you can threaten the publisher, okay, we're gonna get rid of that because we cannot afford it unless those prices go down, not you only, but the other libraries and stuff. So would that be an option to cut the cost, or?
It's always an option. I don't know that we could cut it entirely. There's families, who just rely on that, or maybe they can't get into the physical library all that often. The way our consortium works too, that would be a group decision, which isn't, it's not difficult necessarily, but, because everyone's fiscal situation is so different, some might not be able to do physical resources and can do digital, and their demands would be different. I can say, because I think it is a concern shared by parents and by libraries and stuff, but our story times and early child programs are well attended and getting better and better all the time. So people are still looking for that in-person, that picture book, someone reading a story to them. That's doing great, and in fact, it's increasing here in Elmsdale all the time, which is amazing. So nothing is kind of off the table in terms of consideration. We don't focus a lot of our digital resources on that young age, I will say. We do collect for it, but we don't aim a significant chunk of those resources to it. I don't know if that answers.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay, but there's a motion on the floor. Seeing no one left to speak, we'll go to the vote.
There's no screen here for results.
Oh, there we go. And the motion is passed unanimously. Okay. How do I get? Okay. I'll pass it over to the CAO.
Madam Chair, just in the interest of time, we can move the Dr. Snow bursary item number 14, to council night. That's a fairly quick agenda item. I'd like to, if we could, because staff are here in the room, jump to the opportunity for subsidized community energy, which is number 15, because Wade will be here later on to sort of jump in on number 13. Oh, sorry. For committee's consideration. I think the warden has a question for Jeff.
Oh, go ahead, Warden.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to comment on the digital versus the hard. And, you know, I'm of a certain generation and I like the feel of a book in my hand. I've gone through the stage of reading on a tablet. I know it's probably not healthy for my eyes, but I probably do more reading on this now than I do on anything else. And I think that the digital collection is extremely important. It's extremely important for folks who don't have a physical library in their community. Almost everyone has internet now. So, and if you don't have internet, you have some data on your phone. So, you know, if you're home and you want to read, you can scroll. It may take me a while sometimes, but I can usually find something that I want to read. And be that at home, be that at an airport waiting to go somewhere, to download something to read on the airplane, be it, you know, in an evening at a conference somewhere when I'm looking for something to do. So I think that the investment in the digital catalog, for me, it's very important. And I would agree that probably it's not young children who are using the digital catalog a lot. It is probably, you know, older folks.
Yep.
I don't know how old. I know I use it and I use it a lot. So anyway, I just wanted to make that comment that I appreciate the digital catalog and I know it must be costly, but in some ways, the digital catalog, whatever it costs you for that digital book, can probably be loaned out in the same time frame more times than a physical book. Because if I borrow the digital book and I start reading it today and I have time to read and I finish it tomorrow, then I return it. But if I borrow a physical book from the library and I have the 2 to 3 weeks, whatever, to return it, I'm probably not returning it until the next actual physical trip I make to where the library is. So that digital, for me anyway, that digital copy of that book gets returned into the system and becomes available for someone else more quickly than the physical book would. So those are just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next to speak is Councillor Mitchell.
I'll speak after the presenters left. I don't want
Okay.
to cut into his time.
Okay.
Great, thank you very much.
So thank you for that presentation. Counselor Mitchell?
Yeah, in the interest of time, we're gonna do 15 next.
Yes?
What about 13? Is that gonna move to the end of the day?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, so we're going to move to item 15, which is opportunity for subsidized community energy and emissions plan with Shaunid McDonnell.
Through the chair, my apologies. The report is up on my screen, but it's not up there.
Technology problems work today.
And okay, display.
She's doing it. It's showing on her screen. She's hitting the red button on her screen.
Oh. Oh, it's not letting me use my mouse anymore.
Yeah, why don't we just have Shirley?
Okay, thank you. My apologies. All right. Through the chair, the municipality has an opportunity to develop a community energy and emissions plan through Quest Canada, which is being executed in collaboration with the Clean Foundation. Staff would integrate this initiative under our Municipal Climate Change Action Plan, also known as our MCAP update, as this report would assist us to better understand our community energy use and emissions, and could help inform any recommendations related to mitigation within our MCAP to help create a more robust plan. Participation in this program would also align with our remaining time that we have with the Clean Foundation's Community Climate Capacity Program. We'd be able to pull from their team as a resource and support as an additional support in the completion of this report. Some of the outcomes that come from participating in this program with the Community Energy and Emissions Plan are community benchmark assessment and an energy and emissions inventory. And these items would help the municipality in determining our priorities around energy efficiency and help to manage future risks, and would strengthen our ability to secure funding for climate-related and capital projects as those funding opportunities arise. And so for the financial impact statement, thank you, $6,000 plus HST would need to be added to the 2025-2026 budget funded by the Sustainability Program Reserve to participate in Quest Canada's Net Zero Communities Accelerator Program. This program is heavily subsidized. There are examples of comparable plans that have cost municipalities upwards of $95,000 in the open market. And the recommended motion is move that Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend that Council work with Quest Canada to develop a community energy and emission plan through the Net Zero Communities Accelerator Program at a cost of up to $6,000 plus HST to be funded by the Sustainability Program Reserve. And if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer them, and thank you.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. First to speak is Councillor Tingley.
Through the chair, I have no questions, and the report is excellent, very straightforward, succinct. So I'm going to make the recommended motion. Move. Okay. Move that Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend that council work with Quest Canada to develop a community energy and emission plan through their Net Zero Communities Accelerator Program at a cost of up to $6,000 plus HST to be funded by the Sustainability Program Reserve.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Next to speak before the motion is Councillor Merriam.
Great, thanks, Madam Chair, and to Sinead, thanks for the presentation. I was, in reading the report, it sounds great, and then I kind of thought, well, I wonder if there's any drawbacks, and, I will ask you a question in terms of what some drawbacks could be. One I might point out is, could it be that in having a community energy and emissions plan, could a drawback be that going forward on many initiatives that we're creating an overcomplication by having this as a new benchmark where we're always, reframing a lot of the initiatives against this? Could there be extra costs involved, different financing challenges, adding an element of complexity? I'm just wondering, is there a downside into having this approach?
Through the chair, I think in regards to the development of the community energy and emissions plan, one takeaway would be that it would be able to give a baseline so we know where we're at, as well as providing recommendations as if there are initiatives or projects that are taking place, kind of what would be the best routes to be more energy efficient when tackling those. So it is supposed to be a support in regards to developing a mitigation strategy, which is something that we're anticipating would come from the development or the update to the MCAP. So we're looking at it as something that would provide more information so we have more knowledge of our energy usage and emissions. That is another consideration, I guess, when other projects come up, is how that would be considered, that information into new projects.
So would I be right in looking at this as being almost kind of like creating a plan of suggested guidelines as opposed to some rigid thou shalts, driving future projects, whatever they might look like?
Yes, that would be my interpretation of it. Yes, just to have an understanding of kind of where we're at, where we could go if we'd like to, and just having that information to help inform when making those decisions.
Great, thank you. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. And I think Adam is just going to weigh in on that.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm just going to build on what Sinead had mentioned in your question. Absolutely, that is a conversation we've had internally with this. We need to set our organization and our community up for success with the data that we're getting and ensuring that it's not overly ambitious and setting ourselves up to help support the update of our climate action plan in the right way. So to your point around shalls and this and that, we are very mindful at a staff level, and we will be providing that input throughout the process.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Seeing no one left to speak, we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Okay, so number 13 and number 14 are being postponed? Okay. 13 will go to the end of the day, and 14 will go to council. That leaves us to the adjournment. Okay, so seeing nothing left, we will adjourn the Corporate and Residential Services Committee and break for lunch, resuming at 1:30.